Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Commodity TV and a new edition of our online interview series. We want to get an update today from Chesapeake Gold, and Alan Pangbourne, the CEO, is here with us. Hey, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Jochen. Good to see you, and I hope you had a great summer holiday like many people did.
Thank you. I had indeed, Alan. Thanks for asking. Hope you too. And yeah, it's time for an update because you guys released like a good week ago your metallurgical test work update. So, how is it going? Because metallurgy is key for economics, I would say.
Exactly. I mean, the key piece of work we've been working on for 2 years plus now is to show that the metallurgy for the process of oxidizing the sulfides on the heap leach is
Mhm.
is is possible. And so we put a press release out, like you said, probably about a bit over a week and a half ago now. And that was done deliberately because we were also at Beaver Creek last week. So it was great to catch up with investors, even some from Europe and all through the Americas. And yeah, I'd love to walk you through what it all means.
Okay. Before we start with that, I saw also this is preparing the foundation for a pre-feasibility study early next year. So you want to start that then also?
Correct, because as we were working through things, if you remember about a year ago, again for Beaver Creek, we put out a press release that showed the proof of concept was working, but it also said that we were having a problem with the kinetics, how fast it was oxidizing.
Mm.
And since then, we have found some conditions that work better. And in the press release, there was one picture of a graph which I'd like
Mhm.
to try and explain, which I can't
Yeah,
find now.
that's also
There
one
it
of
is.
my questions. Yeah, the oxidation
Yeah,
rate,
so
isn't
so
it?
this graph
Yeah,
here, if
exactly.
that's possible, I'll just walk people through that. So as I said, a year ago, the black dotted line was the oxidation curve for the proof of concept. And that worked, and it showed us that we could get to 60% gold and 50% silver recovery, which wasn't quite as high as I was looking for, but it was a great start.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, the blue line, the dotted blue line, that shows that the newer tests we ran were running slower. So what's happened in the last year was we've been doing all this metallurgical test work that I said we'd look for conditions that improve it. Firstly, we worked out what was wrong, what was the problem between the blue line and the black line. And you'll see there's a solid black line there where we got back to where we were.
Hmm.
So we found what the problem was, we fixed the problem, we ran another column with the same fresh material, and we got the same right results as the proof of concept, which
Hmm.
was great because it certainly was a huge relief to me. While we were doing that, we found those green lines. Those green lines are a different set of conditions, but they're 50% faster.
Hmm.
So it will oxidize even faster. What does that mean? That means that potentially my capital is lower or my recoveries are higher and my working capital needs before I get cash flow are shorter. A
Hmm.
combination of those three results, all of which are positive. So as you can see, the green line is continuing to go faster than the black line and the black dotted line. We're going to run those columns out, complete them, get the gold and silver recoveries, which if they continue to oxidize faster and higher than the previous curve, should be better. If we get to our 70, 75%,
Hmm.
I've got the data I need to start the pre-feasibility study
Hmm.
early next year and probably get that done by about this time next year. So we'll target just before Beaver Creek again.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
So
Fantastic.
that's
Uh-huh.
that's probably the biggest piece of news is we've solved the issue we've had. We found a faster set again than we saw in the proof of concept test that should allow us to get to our recoveries and then a pre-feasibility
Mhm,
study next
mhm.
year.
Okay, and that would mean also I could imagine lower operating costs and maybe less chemicals, right?
No, the chemicals are really driven by how much you oxidize. So
Okay.
the more you oxidize, the more you have to neutralize. And that drives, that's probably the first or second biggest operating cost for the project. What it does do is, A, it shows that we can get there. We'll be able to get those higher recoveries, 70, 75% gold and silver, which means that if you couple that with one of the other press releases where we showed that the block model was going to be 16% higher grade, if you remember that. So you've got higher grade, the recoveries we had in the PEA, the results for the PFS should be as good as or better than we had whenever we did the PEA 2 years ago, right? Obviously, there'll be some adjustments for metal price and for inflation.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can get away from inflation these days.
Sure, not easy.
So the other thing, Jochen, while we're talking about the metallurgy at Beaver Creek, I took some samples from the lab with me, and I'll just hold them up to the camera.
Yeah, please show it.
See.
That's interesting.
So if that's clear. So that's what the rock looks like before we put it in the column. Yeah. So that's just been crushed. It hasn't been oxidized. And then this one here is when it comes out. It's been oxidized for 180 days. So if I can get them both in two hands, I'll put them next to each other. So there you go. You can very clearly see the color differences between.
Yeah, one is more blue, or bluish.
One's brown and one's gray.
Or grayish,
and so everybody's seen the pictures. I took those along to the trade show, and it allowed investors to actually sit there and touch it and look at it. Okay, I might believe you now.
Okay,
so that was good.
The
other thing that was in the news release, we've also done a fair amount of work on mineralogy at a microscopic level. And so in the press release, there was probably 4 or 5 photos, I can't remember exactly, that showed a picture of grains in that brown sample. So we took the brown material, we screened it into different size fractions, took different size fractions, mounted it in plastic, cut it, and then polished the surface, and we put it into a scanning electron microscope. So it can see smaller than your hair. So it can see very, very fine details of what's going on, particle by particle. We did that on 103 different samples, 991 different point assays, because the scanning electron microscope gives you the ability to assay at a individual point of a couple of microns. So you can see chemically what is where in that crystal. So, if you take this first slide, that shows two things. It shows marcasite before it has been oxidized. Marcasite is a type of pyrite. There's 3 or 4 different types of pyrite. Marcasite is one of the more unstable ones. The red dots on the other picture that's next to it, that is a piece of marcasite that was in our samples. You can see the structure, the radial structure in it, and you can see the red dots. The 3 red dots were individual assays taken across that piece of crystal. And each one of them wasn't pyrite. It wasn't iron sulfide. It had completely oxidized in 180 days to iron oxide. So it was no longer sulfide. So if there was a piece of gold in there, when we leached it with cyanide, we got it. Okay? So that's very encouraging, because 100% of that piece had gone. Now, obviously, that's not all of the pieces, and we put in other photos as well. And one that's really interesting is this slide here. And that photo, it shows 2 things. It shows that, again, we're finding iron oxide in the middle of conglomerates of pyrite. And if you look at it, you can see it seems to have gone down cleavage planes. You can actually see remnants of the cubic crystals as well, if you look closely. And then the red dots again were where we put the analysis. And so you can see in the silvery colored pieces, it's iron sulfide, which is pyrite. Again, in the gray stuff, the dots, it's iron oxide. So in the 180 days, it's turned that aggregate of pyrite, that piece of pyrite, into a sponge. It's got lots of little holes in it, which means that the solutions can get in and out. If the solutions can get in and out, and again, if there was a piece of gold on the surface of the pyrite or in that gray stuff, we would have got it. So that's the second, and that is really important, that one, because it means that the pyrite, I don't have to oxidize all of the pyrite to get at everything, because it's turning it into a Swiss cheese. Yeah, and it's got all these holes in it, so things can get through. And then the final one that, well, it's not the final one, there's one more. The other one about the pyrite is this slide we put in. And that picture, that shows how it progresses. So if you've got a really pure piece of pyrite, it can be a lot slower because it only oxidizes from the outside in, unlike the previous picture where you could see it turned it into a Swiss cheese. The interesting thing about that photo is on one corner, you can see there's a crack, and where the crack is, it's gone further in. So it's following down the crack, yeah? The other thing, I guess the analogy in the real world that people would understand, if you go to the beach and they've used the old anchor chains as part of the fence, they're all dark, rusted, broken, cracked, whatever.
Yeah.
That is exactly the same as is happening with that pyrite. If you cut one of those chains in half, it would still have solid iron in the middle, because if it didn't, it would have broken, right? But on the outside, it looks like it's very, very rusty. That's exactly the same process. We're rusting the pyrite. And in fact, in that picture, you can actually see the cracks on the outside where it's swelling. So the solution can keep getting back into the surface and the reaction can keep going. So, and the red dots again shows the same thing. Iron oxide on the outside, pyrite going through the middle. So that was really great. And the other picture we put in the press release, just so as everybody understands that there is gold in the system. We found a piece of gold. It was 83% gold, 17% silver. So that was the focus of the press release. That was the focus of what I was telling investors when I met with them last week at Beaver Creek. And it's a great piece of news because it continues to support microscopically at a column scale. We found a faster way to oxidize it, puts us right back on track for a great result or an even better result than the PEA sometime next year.
Okay, super. You just said it already. It's now like lab column, so that would also work once you found the right, let's say, solution, the right chemical adding timeline, etc. Then this would work also with the super large tanks, right? Or the super large columns.
That's yes. Certainly in other industries or in other types of ores, generally if it works in the lab, it works in the field.
Yeah, because that's really important. Yeah.
No, it's very important. And but many investors have asked me the same thing, so I may as well answer it for you as well. They've asked about, well, will you do bigger scale testing? Will you do a pilot plant? We will have to, because once we get to the stage we want financing at the end of the feasibility study, most banks for a newer process want to see a pilot plant. So we will end up doing a pilot plant at some stage in the future. We've still got a fair bit of work to do before we get to that stage, but certainly that's on the cards.
Yeah. What are then your next immediate steps? Let's say until end of the year, maybe until first quarter. Is there anything else you want to do in addition? Maybe you can describe a bit.
Most of it is just keep doing what we've been doing. So we continue to collect everything we need to do the pre-feasibility study. So that's critical, obviously. The second thing, as I said earlier, that those green lines on that slide, those columns, we need to run them out to completion, do the cyanide leach, get those results. That is the last piece of the jigsaw puzzle to have everything to do that PFS. So that's really what we've got to get finished. Once we get that, we'll have enough test work to support a PFS level study, which will then give us reserves back and all of that good stuff, and potentially a re-rate because it's a PFS, not just a PEA. And then during the time we do the PFS, we will start doing test work where we test columns across different locations in that intrusive and intrusive breccia to understand how much it varies from location to location, with the intent of building what they call a geometallurgical model. And that's where you add the metallurgy into the geological model, so you truly have variable recoveries, reagent consumptions, etc., for the process. The base metal guys and flotation plants do that a lot more. The gold guys don't generally do it, but my opinion, they should. They might not get as many surprises, but we will do that because this is a new process and we need to understand.
Okay, super. Last two questions. First of all, what is cash in the bank? Meaning, are you fine for this year and next year? And the other question is, what is going on with San Vicente?
Okay, so those two questions quite easily. The cash in the bank, we've got about 24 million Canadian. So unlike a lot of our development and exploration peers, we are well cashed up. And given the sentiment of Beaver Creek, I'd say having cash at the moment is probably the biggest concern of most of the junior market. So unlike many others, 24 million, we burn about 5 to 6 a year. So that's 4 years worth of money. Now, obviously, PFSs don't come for free, but 99% of the work for the PFS was done way back when they did all the drilling to do a PFS on the autoclave project. So there isn't a major drilling program for infill. We've already got all the drilling done for the samples we need for the met test variability work. With these columns that are running at the moment, that should give me the answers I need. And that costs me, that lab, I think it's in the it might not be in the press release, or it's in the corporate presentation. There's a picture. We've got 42 columns running at the moment in the lab here in Vancouver. That costs me about $100,000 a month. So it's not, we don't have large expenses. We don't have a corporate office. As you can see, every interview you've done has been with this background, I think.
That's right.
So we try to keep our overhead down. We're only spending it on what we need to spend it on to get to the PFS.
So we can easily say for the next 3-4 years, you're well financed.
Yes.
That's
your
important
other question,
these days. Yes, I mean,
yes, no, the sentiment at Beaver Creek from that point of view was quite negative. Lots of people were excited about, obviously, the gold price, obviously about the potential of their projects. And there was quite a lot of chatter about consolidation in the market. So, M&A's coming back with a bit of a vengeance. So, who knows? But the money is becoming an issue for some of the smaller companies that are doing drilling programs. Yeah, but we're fine. Your other question was about San Vicente 3. So I can't really add much to what it is already out in the market and what I think we talked about this one time before. So there's a process. We did everything we believed we should have done. The DGM and Sermonat didn't quite agree with us. They took some quite drastic action, and we're appealing that. Yeah, so we're challenging that decision in court. We're in court. It's going through the process. They don't deliver much information until they get to a decision. And of course, once we get a decision, good or bad, It will be put out into the press. If it is not good, we do have the ability to appeal it, and obviously we will. But you know, there have been precedents out there. So you know, sometimes it doesn't go far. Sometimes it has to go all the way to the Supreme Court. It really depends on the position that Sermonat and the DGM take.
Okay.
The one good thing about Mexico still is the rule of law still works.
Yeah.
And there have been multiple cases where things like this have happened, and others. I mean, the president tried to change some electoral rules. He tried to change the power industry and nationalize it. And it fell over when it got to the Supreme Court.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Okay, we will see.
We have to wait. Yeah, I'm
exactly.
sorry.
That's the only thing you can do.
There's nothing else I can tell you.
Yeah, no, it's fine. No problem at all. Super. Alan, thanks for the update. I think we touched on everything. That looks good. I would say keep your tests going. That's the only thing you can move really forward then. And hopefully you get as fast as possible those good results you want to see, maybe better. We will see. And then please start with the PFS, because the world needs your metals, I would say.
Well, you know, the thing is, it's not just that. The process will unlock billions of ounces that currently are not economical. Yeah, this once we get it through and more people start to understand how it's working, what we're doing, it will change how you treat refractory sulfide gold. I am very confident of that. I saw it happen in the copper industry. If you go and look at the nickel industry today, you'll find that people have started heap leaching nickel laterites and replacing the autoclaves, the high capital autoclaves. And as soon as you do that, that means your whole cutoff grade comes down.
Yeah, super. Perfect.
So,
okay, thank you very much, Alan. Wish you all the best, and talk soon to you.
Thank you, Jock, and same to you. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Bye. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that was Alan Pangbourne, the CEO of Chesapeake Gold. And you heard that the things are moving forward. Of course, it all takes time, because this is the nature of the process. But it looks like they are making the progress, and hopefully within the next 6 to 9 months as latest, they can really start in with the PFS. And as Alan alluded to, this is a new process, a new, I would say, invention, if you want to call it like that, which would really change the metallurgy, but also really change the world of mining. And this is where the beauty lies in. And don't forget, the company has enough money these days. This is super important. So for the next at least 4 years, they are really, really safe. And I think the mining super cycle really starts next year. So from that perspective, everything is in good shape. We will see. Check out the company. Thanks for watching us, and bye-bye from Switzerland.